Well, thank you very much. Seems like I had a holiday because I haven't been here for the last two sessions, I think. So as Kathleen was saying, we started really looking at the pledge, and many persons have taken that pledge. And a pledge is just not a bunch of words, right? One is something we believe in. Two is something we want to do. But a lot of times when we want to do things, we have to have the skill set. So we're looking at, I would say, a lot of the skill set, what we need to do in order to live this pledge. So the second leg of it is to communicate better and, and honestly. So one of the things in order to communicate better that we need to do is to be able to share our feelings honestly. A lot of times when we are communicating with people, we have all kinds of feelings, and sometimes we try to save people from what we're feeling. And I don't know if that is always right, right? I don't know if that's always right. Because sometimes we just need to be able to say, this is what I feel, and why I feel so, in order to move on. But sometimes when we bury our feelings, what happens? You know what happens? It hikes out, right? When we didn't even intend to walk, right? So sometimes that is what happened to us. So sharing our feelings, getting in touch with our feelings is rather important. Then we want to look at safe ways to express anger and other emotions. Okay, sometimes we have to be able to do that. A lot of people either bury their anger, or they act it out, or they become, in acting it out, become very aggressive. And, when we say look for a safe way to express your anger, we need to be able to manage ourselves. And I'm going to talk a little more about that just now. To manage ourselves in ways that we're not self-deprecating, and at the same time, we're not destroying of other people likewise. Sometimes you hear people say, me, I'm going to tell her the truth, and she'll go hear it. As though we have to bulldoze people by the truth and with the truth. And I always say, I don't know where I learned it from, but I think it's a Chinese saying that in order to speak the truth, it should go through 3 gates. 1, we should ascertain that it is the truth. The first responsibility we really have is to check it out. Is it really true? The second gate, do I have to say it now? Sometimes I need to speak the truth, but I don't need to speak it now. Sometimes the place makes it inappropriate. The where, in front of whom, makes it inappropriate. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, if I have to speak the truth, could I say it in a way in which I would like to hear it said to me? The golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So that. And it is not just only anger, but a lot of other emotions. But as I was thinking of doing tonight, I was saying, to talk about emotions would take me 2-3 days. So I just want to talk about the other emotions that makes communication difficult. I do a lot of work with boys. And you may find that surprising, but boys find it very difficult to say that they are afraid. It's an emotion that past 9 years old, they're afraid to say they're afraid. And if I have found a boy out of the maybe now 300, 400 boys that have asked the same question doing my own kind of research, if they can say, I'm afraid, they can say to a mother. I have never found a boy yet that have said, I could say to my father. And maybe not because fathers have said to them, you can't tell me that you're afraid. But maybe it is just what they imbibe in our homes from their uncles and their dads, that men supposed to be strong. And I don't know how strength became the opposite of fear, or fear became the opposite of strength. But somehow they imbibe that and they feel to be strong, then if you have to be strong, you can't be afraid. You can't say that you are afraid. Then boys around 12, 13 find it very difficult to express love. And I find that very interesting in the culture, in our culture. You see, before that, a hug and telling you you're fine and whatever else is quite appropriate. And then you get into the teenage years, and we have all of these things that we teach them about purity and chastity and all of that. And yet, so you have that, and you have a mix in the culture that the only way you could express love is sexually. So they're confused as to, they don't know how to express love. Sadness is another one. Men tend to think to go inside and become quiet. Women tend to talk a little more. That's not true for everybody, but generally speaking. So there are really feelings that are more difficult to express. What about women? Women, we are afraid to express jealousy. You ever tell anybody you feel jealous? It's something you hide, you sit on. You sit on because you're afraid to be judged if you say, I feel jealous at this. Whenever we say it, we make a joke of it. You think I'll get jealous now. So you kiss and you didn't kiss me, you think I'll get jealous. So we make it as a joke. But when we really experience jealousy, it's hard for us to say that what I'm really feeling is jealous. What do you think women, the other feelings women are find it difficult to express? Yes. Although that's becoming, so Nika is saying anger. That's becoming a little more palatable, right? Because women, when we had to express anger, you see, because anger in the culture is always expressed very aggressively. So if a woman had to express anger and she did it aggressively, then she got a name, a bad name, which we won't even talk about, right? So, again, that's shame. We feel ashamed, but sometimes it's hard to express that. So, the way to make it safe for us is to start sharing feelings with the people we trust. Then another thing that makes it difficult for us to share a lot of our emotions is because we don't have vocabulary for emotions. I'm mad, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm glad, I'm happy, and now we know we're depressed, right? But usually, and we don't have to feel badly about that because we know emotional intelligence is the greatest area of illiteracy throughout the entire world. It's not only in the Caribbean. So let's look at managing emotional states. If you are unable to manage your emotional state, it's most likely that you cannot help a child manage their emotional state. What you have on your hard drive, that is what you're going to download. So if you can't download calm, what are you going to download? Upsetness. Upsetness. You think this could help this child? You could just get a sense of what's going on there, right? So managing our emotional state is really, really important. And we usually sabotage ourselves. So I want to spend a little time there tonight. You know, usually we blame people for how we feel. If you didn't do that, I wouldn't feel so. You make me feel. Well, I have news for you. Nobody makes you feel. Right? Your feelings get aroused, get triggered by what people say. Okay? But somebody else that you love pass and tell you the same thing, or some friend pass and tell you the same thing, and trust me, you would have a very different reaction, a very different feeling. You know? So we like to blame. When we blame, what happens? Then we act out and we demand, you have to change. If you stop doing that, then I won't feel so. And you know that, right? So we demand that people change their ways. So we want to control them so that if the world is going differently, then I will feel better. That's not so at all. We medicate. So what we medicate? What are some of the things we do there? Well, you know, we could even medicate by we stop talk. We go on the phone for hours. We hide our feelings. We don't make any connection. And then we could take that worse. You know, we could go drink it out. Right? We go gamble it out. Shop it out. Right? We could go do all of that. But just think about how you medicate your feelings, how you try to soothe your feelings. And ask yourself, and those at home, is it always healthy things that we do? Do we exercise? Do we journal? Do we just share it with somebody else? You know? I was saying to someone today, well, draw your anger. And maybe after you finish drawing your anger, maybe what you should do is draw what you need to help heal your anger. So if you don't want to journal and write it and you want to keep your business to yourself, well, maybe use another form. Use art journaling. If I had to draw my anger, what shape would it be? And draw that. And if it had colors, what colors would it be? Put in the colors. And if it had a voice, what would it say? And who would it say to? And get a hold of it, right? Do something positive with it. Then we bury all those feelings. Sometimes that's what we do. We bury all those feelings. We are afraid of it. We are afraid to express it. And then what happens after that? Well, what happens after that is that we get stuck. We get stuck in that feeling. We get stuck for a long time. And when we get stuck, that whole addictive cycle just starts all over again. Right? So you're shaking your head, so there might be some familiarity in terms of the experience of it. But that cycle just really sabotages us. So let's look and see, right, where we need to be. So what you want? You know that language? What you want, right? What others want from me? The passive. And this is where we really have to be, in the assertive stage, right there. That's where we need to be. That's where we need to be. So I can say, right now, I'm feeling really angry. I'm angry because you said to me that you were going to meet me at the library at 4, and I waited until 5, and you didn't even call and say. Another time, I would prefer that you call. End the story. Didn't I express my feeling? Did I tell her what I would prefer? See, because sometimes when we cannot name our need, we get stuck. We must be able to do that. Right? We must be able to do that. Then the other thing. So let's look at what self-regulation and a non-violent cycle would look like. So instead of I blame, I realize I am triggered. I'm feeling frustrated right now. I'm feeling jealous right now. Or I am feeling angry right now. Or I am feeling whatever I'm feeling. Okay? And remember, feelings not bad or good. They just are normal. They just are. So when I'm triggered, what do I do? Instead of blaming, what do I do? Then I take control and I calm myself. Okay? And the Lord has given us wonderful ways to do that. And with all of the brain research we have now, we know the best thing to calm yourself is diaphragmatic breathing. So just breathe. Breathe from your, give me a belly breathe. Right? Breathe from there. and get calm. Count backwards, get calm. Recognize what you're feeling. I feel this. Recognize what you're feeling. Sometimes we're so angry, we don't even recognize it as anger first. We feel so confused. And then when we really take time with ourselves, we know what we feel. Okay? Once you name something, guess what? You have much more power to make a choice. It's not water under the house anymore. You know where it's coming from, right? You can make a choice. You can choose. And guess what? Once you can choose, you can begin to problem solve. So you see how you can get there? So you recognize, I am triggered. Right now I am triggered. Hey, Julie, just calm yourself. Take a nice, long, deep breath. Calm yourself. Wow, what are you feeling? Well, I'm not quite angered yet, but I'm very frustrated. Okay, very frustrated. I have a choice. What can I do? I could choose to go get help. If I'm frustrated, something is blocking me or whatever. Or I am blocking my own self. So what do I do? So I could generate alternatives and make a choice. And sometimes in our families, we need to help our families do that. We need to help our little ones do that. Wow, you're really, really feeling upset. You're angry. You're acting as if you're angry. Okay? So let's see what we can do. We can just breathe. Or you can tell me what you're angry about. Get them to talk. And let's see what we can do with what you're feeling. So maybe you need to tell your little brother, you don't like it when he calls you by another name. You want to be called by your name. So you see how we're solving the problem and how we're teaching them to communicate at the same time. That making sense to you? Right, very good. So you have, instead of an addictive cycle, you have a success cycle. You could work it out that way, right? So our capacity to self-regulate gives us control over our instinct and survival reaction. Because a lot of times that's what we want to do. We really want to just, without self-regulation, there is absolutely no impulse control. We really begin to act out of our instinct. Self-regulation allows us what? Choices, decision-making. It helps us to plan. So regulating our impulses really is essential for following rules, because if you're regulated, your impulses are regulated, and you're working out of your frontal lobe of your brain, then you can make good decisions. What can you do? You can follow the rules, you can set goals, you can achieve goals. Now, if you look at yourself when you're angry, if you're very angry, you forget what you're even doing, You don't even know where you're going anymore, Your short-term memory is it's gone, right? So you want to do that. So self-regulation is that ability really to regulate not only our thoughts and our feelings, but also our actions. So you see how important it is? Once you're self-regulated, then you could literally monitor your thoughts and work with it. You could be aware of your feelings and work with it. And if you're aware of your feelings and you know what you're thinking, guess what? Then you could line up your action to match up. Then you could do that, and then you make some good choices. Imagine life where there is no control. We can't control what we think. Imagine life we can't control what we feel. Imagine what life would be if we had absolutely no control over what we think, what we feel, and what we want to do. But there are times when we get glimpses of that. We get glimpses of that when we have no self-regulation. We get glimpses of that in ourselves, and it's a frightening experience. We ask ourselves, why did I say that? And why did I do that? Was I mad? Yeah, momentarily you were mad, right? So we need to look at that. Our ability to live peacefully with freedom and responsibility depends on self-regulation. Depends on that. That impulse control is really, really important. And we I think we did that the last time, but I really wanted to go back to it because that's really where I want you. I want you basically never to get up there. If you're talking about peace, we don't want to get up there. We don't want to get down here either, where these things become toxic. But really what we want to do as people that are trying to live peacefully and non-violently, we want to be able to handle our emotions in this range. That's where we want to handle it, right? Our emotions are wonderful things, but we really want to handle it there. We want to be able to be so self-regulated that it is there. You know, that is where we put in the self-regulation. And that is where we're going to put in, guess what? We're going to put in our stay calm plan. So that's what you want to do. So to live what we're talking about in a very practical way, to get to live peace is not to think peace only, but it's to do peacemaking things. Right? And the first person, you can't wait for other people to do peacemaking things. We have to become the ones that are doing peacemaking things. And so to do this is to become an active peacemaker, an active, non-violent person. To yourself, towards yourself, and other people and the environment. Okay? So, by now, hopefully, not only you who are here, the live audience, but people who are home, you who are home, hopefully you also have your peace plan. You know, when I feel this, this is what I'm going to do, right? So that you could really make that pledge much more applicable and implement it in your life. Because what happens? This is what happens, a lot of times. This is what happens. So something happens, and guess what? I blame you. Once I start blaming you, I am attacking you at your own person, right? And once I do that, so let me give you a regular kind of example. If a child says, you know, I'm not learning anything in school because a teacher can't teach, right? So the child is attacking the teacher, the person of the teacher. And the teacher says, you're really not learning anything because you talk too much all the time, right? You have no control. But what happens if they would have a conversation? So once they have that kind of conversation we just have, this is what's going to happen. They're going to be, the problem is not solved because they're attacking one another. One can't teach and one have no self-control. One have no manners, right? So that is what's going to happen. Now, so when each of them see themselves as the problem itself never gets solved. But if we turn blame into shared responsibility, a very different thing happens to those arrows, right? So if A says, you know, miss, you know when I talk? I only talk when you call out those notes real fast and I get frustrated. I talk. So I will see if I could really, you know, hold it a little bit. And then let's say, Miss says, B says, you know, sometimes I really call out the notes fast, in truth. So I'm going to try to call it out slow. So let's make a pact. You call it out slow, and I stop the talking in the class. Guess what's going to happen? This is what's going to happen. They're going to put their energies now to do what? To solve the problem. That's what they're going to put their energies to do. So you see what's happening now? All of the energies become very synergetic, and then they really solve the problem. You can see I'm becoming very nonviolent. I was going to say attack the problem, and you heard me cut myself. I cut myself in my head, even before it got to my tongue. Nice. Nice job. Right. So that is what's going to happen there. All right? Now, to work at solving problems peacefully, guess what needs to happen? We need to communicate. We need to communicate. And when we're communicating, you see what's happening? Right? We need to look at each other. Right? That's respectful. I have to see your face. I have to bring your presence, right? Bring a presence to you, that you're important to me. What you're saying to me is necessary and it's important. I really want to hear you. I really want to learn from you. We say all of that with our eyes. We say all of that with our face, right? So we have to learn to do that, okay? To encourage an open system of communication in all relationships that we really try. So from the little ones up, we try to just have an open system, have them talk with us, so that by the time they get to this age, then they are accustomed doing that, all right? Respectful communication. So let's look at that. I think this is from, I want to say Eric Law, who is an anthropologist. I think that's where many years at some workshop. But you could always look it up. So R, to take responsibility basically for what you feel, what you think, right? And what you even need, what you want, to take responsibility for that. It's not you make me do that, and it's not because you're here I'm going to just do this. No, so take responsibility. Do empathic listening. To try to take off your shoes. You know, empathic listening for me is always trying to learn from the other person's experience. Even though they tell you something that you know, because it's a different person who have experienced it, could you try to learn from their experience? Be educated in what they're trying to tell you. So when you're trying to learn, you're not listening as if you're going to debate. You know, a lot of us don't have dialogue, we have debate. Because we're listening for things to cut down, things to rebut. But when we listen empathically, we're listening to learn. We're listening to understand. We're listening to share your feelings and your thoughts. Being sensitive, you know, being sensitive to different styles of communication. Sometimes the way people talk will turn us off. Well, how do we rise above that? We rise above that because we listen to content. As a speaker, I have all the responsibility to try to communicate in a way that you will hear me. But as a listener, you have the responsibility to rise above Sister Julie's voice tone that you don't like and listen to the content so that you can learn something from it. Right? And then if you're on the same page and you give me feedback and you say, well, Sister Julie, maybe you could tone it down, or maybe you could tone it up, or what have you. Right? Ponder. Ponder on what you feel and what you think and long before you open up your mouth. Right? So ponder the things. Ponder what you're going to say. Right? Ponder everything before you really open up your mouth. Really examine your own assumptions. That does really get us in trouble. And examine not only our assumptions, but also our perceptions. You know? Sometimes we go into a conversation and we have assumptions long before the conversation even started. So we're not hearing what the person is saying because we are hearing it against the assumptions that we have. So we're screening it. So if you're screening it, guess what? You're editing out what you don't want to hear, what doesn't fit your assumption. So if it doesn't fit your assumption, you're already not having a conversation. If you're making it fit your assumption, right? And if you want it to fit, or if you feel your perspective is the only perspective, then there is no conversation going on. There is no learning going on. There is control. Confidentiality, even within families. You know, you will find that your teenagers are very, very careful what they say to you. Because sometimes they say to you, Mommy, I'm telling you that I don't want you to tell Auntie. I'm telling you that I really don't want you to tell my godmother. I don't want you to do this. And, you know, sometimes I wonder if parents listen to that. You know, sometimes parents say, you know, our children don't have trust in us, that this, that. But sometimes those are the ways we break trust. Sometimes they want to be the ones to announce their whatever it is. Okay? So when people say to you, you know, Mommy, Daddy, whatever, there are times when obviously what they're talking about, you have to share it as two parents and you let them know why you have to do that. Or say it would be easier if you have a conversation when Daddy comes home tonight, both of us will sit down with Daddy and we'll have a conversation, if that will make it easier for you. Okay? But there are ways to help do all of those kinds of things. And then tolerate. You know, to tolerate, be able to tolerate ambiguity. Because this is not about finding out who is right and who is wrong. You know, sometimes we start out there, I am right. And if I am right, you must be wrong. And sometimes I have to find a way to make you wrong. Right? Parents do that with children. Teachers do that in the classroom sometimes. Right? But sometimes it's not always about right and wrong. But we're searching for a truth here. We're searching, you know, in a regular conversation at home. We're searching just for what makes it more comfortable for you. What makes it just more comfortable. All right? So, any questions here for me tonight? Or anything that I said resonated with you as a truth, as something you know that you need to work on in terms of living out that part of your pledge?
Well, I think a lot of what you said resonated with most of us. But for me, I was thinking while you were talking that I think for us, a lot of us, our spirituality has helped us to imbibe a lot of what you have said. Mm-hmm. And the Spirit naturally takes us along that journey to do that kind of work you were talking about. So I think hopefully a lot of us, I think for myself, a lot of that is in the process of being taking place. Of course, the journey is never done. It never ends until we're dead. But hopefully I would like to think, because I was reflecting on my own journey as a parent and how I didn't do too well when I was a young parent, mm-hmm. and how I learned over time.
So your grandchildren will be the beneficiaries.
But I was thinking, Lord, you hope that the mistakes you made with your children would bring, there would be healing in them eventually, and that God would hear your prayer that because of your weakness, you didn't manage to be that great a parent. But then later on in life, you showed them some kind of empathy, some kind of love, to help them to come back, you know. So all of that, a lot of what you said found a sure response in my life.
Right, and thanks for being that honest and open. There's one thing you said that I want to take up on, and maybe that would be helpful for parents too, and not only parents, for anybody. I think when we have made mistakes in the past, and we recognize those mistakes, I would challenge us, just don't only pray that healing will happen. The greatest healing that God allows to happen is by using us as the instrument of that healing, the instrument to bring peace. So to have that conversation, it takes a lot of humility, a lot of humility, but to take that conversation and to say, you know, there's a conversation I think I need to have. Maybe it may not make sense to you, but I just want you to give me the space to say that. You know, I know I did this, and I would suspect that you were hurt. You know, we never spoke about it. There was a lot of silence around it, and maybe the silence is what hurt. You know, but to have the humility to honestly have those conversations, and I think that is how peace comes. And sometimes we can't even have those conversations. Sometimes I encourage parents, write a letter. I encourage children, write a letter. And maybe daddy reading it or mommy reading it will always know, look, there's something here for us to talk about. And then we could talk about it. But, you know, in addiction counseling, we talk about spitting in someone's soup. And it's an awful imagery, but it's a very powerful process. You know, if I'm so addicted and I'm drinking soup and I really love my soup, and and I can't give it up, and you just pass and you're spatting it, I'm so sick, I'll still continue drinking the soup, but I'll never drink it with the same delight. It would have changed something. And I think we you know, working on the other side of it, I think we need to change something for people so they know that there's an opportunity there, there's an awareness there, right? There's an awareness there that something has to happen. I remember somebody saying to me, you know, she was sexually abused by her brother, and she just went to him and she said, look, I remember what you did, and I just hope that you're not doing it to my nieces. And that was the end of the conversation. It was enough to bring her another step in our healing, but it was also enough to take some responsibility and to put a challenge out there.
As we open up the conversation, we can invite people who would like to call. I'm sure the number's up on the screen. Feel free to call in.
So Julie, you spoke of something earlier on about communicating emotions and the challenges that present themselves where that is concerned. And I think you're quite right, because there's a very thin line between calm honesty, which we spoke of at the beginning, and aggressive forthrightness. And we tend to pass this off as, that's how he is. He just says what he has to say and he's done with that. So in other words, you are wrong to be offended. You should not be offended because that is how he is. And that is something that I have found very, very challenging with my relationships with various people, be it office, family, and so on. And I would like to solicit a comment from you on that, please.
Well, I think sometimes the honesty is to be, you know, I'm grateful for when you speak the truth to me, you know, but I think it would even be easier for me to accept it, to hear it, to use it, if you would use a slightly different tone. You know, and just even, sometimes you even have to model the tone. You know, I have said to people, how would you like me to have said that to you? Especially children.
Yeah. Yes, so we want to thank Sister Julie here. Thank you very much, Sister Julie.
Very welcome.
If there are any other questions or comments, you can join in anytime, or any callers, feel free. Sister Julie did mention in the beginning that she felt like she'd been on holiday. And it did seem like that. The last time you were here was in June. And like many of you, and many of you out there as well, we did take a break for 2 months, but the movement for nonviolence was quite busy, just as Sister Julie, I'm sure, has been. And we have been working on building our partnerships. The Franciscan Institute has been one of our first and dearest partners, and we are very grateful to have Sister Julie and her team with us here again and again. I'm seeing a signal we have a call. Good evening. Welcome. Hello. Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good night.
Good night.
Yes, I've been following this program for a while. Hello, good night.
Hello, good night. Yes, thank you. We're happy that you've
And
been following.
I think I think Sister Julie, you're awesome. This program tonight, I learned a lot of things, because I know sometimes I'm so angry.
Yes, well, you know, anger is a normal, natural feeling.
I got some ideas how to deal with my anger.
That's good.
Yes. I want to thank you for the program. I just love listening to you all, especially you.
Well, thank you very much. So make a little plan as to how you're going to deal with the anger.
Okay, good night.
All right, okay. Yeah, and there was an echo. I could hear the echo. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think she maybe was listening on the television, yes. So it is, as I was saying, we haven't been quite on holiday
No.
because we're preparing for the month of October. October is going to be the month of nonviolence. Internationally, October 2nd is celebrated as the International Day for Nonviolence. And we are planning a few activities here. On October 1st, we will be having here at 109 Frederick Street an interfaith gathering. It will be a mixture of prayer, of song, of dance, all under the theme of nonviolence begins with me. Just reinforcing that idea that if we want peace out there, and nonviolence out there, it has to begin in here. So that's October 1st, and everyone is invited. It's a free event, and everyone is invited to come right here, starting at 4 o'clock. And on the day itself, October 2nd, we are inviting schools and anyone who, teacher, principal, anyone who has a group who would like to participate in an activity on that day. We're inviting you to attend a meeting this coming Monday right here at our center on Frederick Street at 5 o'clock, because we want to engage especially our young people in activities that will get that message out there, because it's going to begin, the future really is going to be with them. Yeah? So we're inviting anyone who might be interested in participating in an activity, starting an activity in their group, in their school, to come along to that meeting on Monday at 5 o'clock right here. Yes? I know that Sister Julie is very busy doing work with schools, and I don't know if you have any suggestions for us on some of the ideas we might be able to share with some of these schools and groups on activities that they may be able to do to mark that day or to start some sort of movement or awareness in their schools or in their groups.
Well, always, I guess, being Franciscan, the environment is always a big concern for me. And I always think we could clean up, an area. So that's one thing to do to clean up a place. Get a group of young people that will do that. So that's one idea. Another idea is just even to write letters of welcome to refugees that are around. There are lots of Venezuelans around, and maybe many more persons. I'm just much more aware of them because I hear and I see them. But just to write a letter of welcome and a letter just expressing some empathy and some, because I think it's very, very difficult to want to be displaced, to be out of your country. And I don't think this is only food and clothes that needed. I think because people are social beings, people could be very filled but very lonely. So maybe that's something just even to raise the awareness, and hopefully there's a group of people that is prayed for the day before. So it will make sense even to write some letters, and then I know that's part of the ministry of this community, so that the letters could be given, names could be given to people, that kind of thing. So those two come to mind. Well, the Monday we have you have two things. You could come earlier to our place and then come back, because we have the Franciscan Fiesta. The Feast of St. Francis is on the 4th, but I have to leave on the 2nd. So the 1st. And part of that is I'm going to be doing an exhibition of some of my photography. So you're free to come see the photography and do a little 10 minutes something. We always do different things, like teach people to do various types of composting and those kinds of things. There's some activities you could do likewise. Yeah.
Where and what time?
Well, we usually start at 1, so if you come, and then because you have to come back here, you will be free to just run around fast and then come back. Come back, because I don't want it to be a competition. I want it to be complimentary. We live at Kunupia. You know why UTT Shigonas is? Japan Motors, right there, right there. Yeah, that's the second house. Where Dune and Dune used to live. Yeah, most persons know that house.
Okay, hi, Sister Julie. I just want to say that I really enjoyed tonight's presentation. I think that I was invited here to this session for a reason. What really resonated for me is the importance of developing that peace plan and self-regulation. That is much easier said than done. But it's something that I think once I'm able, me personally, because I think Adele and Terry here, my friends next to me, could attest to the fact that, yes, I have a little aggression that I am working through. But the important thing is really just taking time to step back mentally, calm myself, and really figure out what I'm feeling and develop that plan. So self-regulation, that's what stuck out to me tonight.
Mm-hmm. And you know, it's going to sound trite, but it's as simple as that in truth. But if you just start with breathing, after this I'll just show you what to do. It's very, very easy. The body was made to heal, and you could really, really get your anger down in a very short time, really short record time. You know, just doing diaphragmatic breathing. Yeah, it really, I mean, I sell it to anybody and everybody because you have it there. It's free. It's a gas station inside of your body. Just use it.
In the same vein about, being calm, particularly with the RESPECT acronym, when you reach ponder, when you said that P, I was like, that is so much swimming against the tide of present day, where you feel that everything has to happen now. I think, when I'm trying to have, I think it's a discussion, but if I'm honest, it's an argument. And after your opening statements and your opening argument, it's like, okay, let me hear where you're coming from. That's where you're waiting. Mm-hmm. Instead of giving the person the chance to take in and to ponder what you just said. And this picture that you have here made me think of nature. Franciscan spirituality, I guess. Of the thing, of things growing in the quietude, in the silence, and for us to really embrace this idea of and this movement of nonviolence, it will take time, and very much that, particularly respectful communication, is something that requires a lot of patience, and not just the opposite, which is the aggression and the anger, where let's do this, fix this now, and you have to see things my way. So that's why I have to try and just be calm, ponder, so.
Thank you for saying that, and as you, I suppose over the years of doing this, two scripture situations come to my mind that I like to use scripture to frame a lot of how I try to behave. One is the Emmaus story. Jesus enters, and he's listening almost like he's stupid. He just doesn't know. That so much so that I ask him, you don't know? You must be the only one that don't know what's going on. He's not jumping in there and telling him, I told you this had to happen, I told you. He's just listening and just putting in a question or making a comment there. And then the other one is the disciples are arguing on the road, who is the greatest and who this and who that. And Jesus doesn't jump in there. He waits until they get back to their place of abode. He says, so what were you all arguing on the road about? Just cool, so. What were you arguing on the road about? It's like he didn't hear them. And then he got there, and once they sat down, he just said, so what were you arguing on the road about? And they were stunned so much so they just couldn't answer immediately, So these things, hopefully they help inform how we listen. And I think the key word there is to really respect the dignity, the Christ in the other person. Listening is really a ministry. It's a ministry. You could listen. It's really more than that. It's an art and an attitude. And the attitude has to be what shapes the ministry. That I'm listening so that I could learn, so that the way I listen should affirm the dignity of this person. So I'm not interrupting. And actually your next thing is going to be on listening. So I'm not going to spend so much time on it because the next one is going to be on listening according to your pledge.
Yes, when you were talking about keeping calm and peace, Jesus often said, my peace I give you, not as the world gives it. he gave peace, and he spoke of peace as being something divine, something very precious, and something that was given by God. And before he left to be ascended, it said he breathed on his apostles and said, I breathe peace on you. So this is something, if we are spiritual, if we're trying to live a Christian life, peace is something that you pray for. It's something, again, that you self-discipline is important in all of this nonviolence. So easy to rip off and to tear down. Self-discipline, you control your first reaction. And the action then is to build, to be peaceful. And if you're most of your day, you are on the whole peaceful. You can think peaceful thoughts, you can pray, you can be communing with Jesus, you can be asking for peace. When something happens, your reaction is not going to be to strike out and to be, you're going to give what you are filled with, this beautiful peace.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. It's a beautiful way to end our program this evening. Thank you again to Sister Julie.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you to our live studio audience, and thank you to all of